The first reading today, about Eldad and Medad. They're given this great gift of prophecy, and Moses says, would that everyone were prophets, that they would go out and say and preach and act like they're supposed to act. Jesus is kind of saying the same. He's saying, do great deeds in my name, you can't do any wrong. So there are many ways we can do great deeds. And I would suggest that sometimes we do the great deed first, and then the Lord rewards us. And sometimes that reward takes on many different shapes and sizes. There was a woman one day who called me, and I was speaking to her, and she was going to the fertility clinic. She and her husband were married for 10 years and couldn't have any children. And so they were going to try in vitro. And as soon as I found out about it, I tried to talk her out of this. I explained the whole process to her and how it works, and how we end up losing lives by trying to gain them. And so she said she was going to make an arrangement with the doctor so that that wouldn't happen. When she went to the doctor and tried to arrange this, the doctor wouldn't do it. Statistically, they wanted to have as many possibilities as they could. But, money talks, and when she paid the bill, the doctor did what she wanted to do. None of the children began to divide. None of them ever formed. And so she was very frustrated by this whole ordeal. And I had introduced her to a doctor on the West Shore, Dr. Mark Stegman, who has since retired. But he works with a group of individuals who work with what they believe are the teachings of Christ. And they work within that in order to help couples who are infertile to get pregnant. Well, she went there, and he gave her a very basic examination, and through that examination, found out that she had endometriosis and really never could have had children the way she was. And so she went through some surgical procedures, and Dr. Stegman said, wait a year and then we'll see how it goes. And so she did. Now during this time, I was sent to Mexico. I was sent there with 14 seminarians and another priest. They were going there to learn Spanish and get enmeshed in the culture. And I was there for 8 weeks. And one of the weeks, we went to DF, which is Mexico City. It's kind of the Mexican New York City, so you're not really missing too much if you don't go there. But amidst the subways, amidst the people and everything else, we were there for a few days. And I remember the one day, it was a Sunday, and I wanted to celebrate Mass somewhere. The bishop was coming to town. So this is like a dream. The bishop's coming to town. He's actually a cardinal because it's an archdiocese. And he's going to have Mass in this particular church. Now my Spanish still wasn't as good as it is up to this point. And so I was asking directions, I was asking times, and either he was confused or I was confused. But the fact is, I arrived at Mass at the cathedral during the cardinal's homily, which meant I missed the Mass. I didn't have time to vest and have Mass with him there. And I was so angry. And I was angry probably because I misunderstood or because that guy gave me bad information, whatever it might have been. So I went to the church nearest to us, which is actually a beautiful church. And Mass was beginning in 15 minutes. And I approached the priest and I said to him that I was a priest from the United States. I wanted to concelebrate. And I showed him my credentials. And he said, no. We don't allow diocesan priests to concelebrate here. We're Augustinians. Just so you know if you run into any Augustinians. Now these were Mexican Augustinians, but still, well, I was beside myself. I couldn't believe this. Here I am a priest, it's Sunday, and I'm trying to celebrate Mass. And I have to admit, for even a moment, I thought to myself, I'm trying so hard, it's just, I'm not even going to do it. I'm not going to do it. I'm a priest, and I'm not going to do it. And I went back to my hotel room, and I opened up my Mass kit. And I celebrated Sunday Mass on the end table of this hotel room in Mexico City, less than a few blocks away from a cathedral and a church. And it was a wonderful Mass. It really was. It was a very prayerful Mass because I celebrated that Mass on my knees. And I was just so filled up with all these emotions. Well, the next day, we went to see La Iglesia de la Señora de la Guadalupe in Tepeyac. Okay, this big basilica for Our Lady of Guadalupe. And we went there, and we were going to celebrate Mass there. So this is a dream at this point. We get there, and we're showing him our credentials. And I showed him what's called a celebrate. That's a card that we carry with us as priests that means we're in good standing, we can celebrate Mass. And they said, there's no picture on that. And I said, well, here's my passport and my name, and there's no picture, no photo. You can't celebrate Mass here. You are absolutely kidding me at this point. Well, this guy was friendly enough that he called the diocese of Harrisburg. And he spoke to the bishop, Bishop Rhodes at that time, who gave the authority that I was in good standing, that I could celebrate Mass. And during this Mass, so this Mass at Our Lady of Guadalupe, and Guadalupe, that image of Our Lady, she's pregnant with child. And I celebrated Mass for the intention of this woman and her husband that they would get pregnant, because they've gone through, the process with Dr. Stegman and everything else. And I remember celebrating that Mass, just being so happy that I could celebrate it, after all the struggle that I went through even to get to that point. And we left there amidst some other happenings. You can read about it at some other time. And about a month after that experience, my sister calls me. This woman was my sister. And she says, thank you for introducing me to Dr. Stegman. I'm pregnant. And then 2 weeks later, she called me back and she said, with twins! And I didn't answer any more of her calls after that. I thought, oh my gosh, a prayer was answered. Now, a little backstory, I found out that after I introduced her to this doctor, she started going to Mass regularly, where she had not before. That she went to confession for the first time in a long time. Shortly before that, I had blessed their marriage because they had been married outside of the church. She started getting all these things in place. She started making herself, her relationship with God, right. She cut off her arm, she cut off her leg, she plucked out her eye, as the gospel states. She got rid of all those things that were holding her back. And I believe that through the intercession of Our Lady, she was rewarded in that way. And I went through hell that day to get to celebrate Mass in a heavenly place. And out of spite or out of laziness or out of frustration, I might never have gotten there because it wasn't an easy journey. But I think that's what happens. This is how we do acts, miraculous acts in God's name, in Jesus' name. And that act may be something like coming here and spending a holy hour in the middle of the night, if that's available to us. That act may be helping someone anonymously who we know needs it, even with words, just kind of lifting other people up, giving them 3 affirmative words instead of negative words, spreading positive rumors about someone else instead of negative ones. It's cutting off the arm that causes us to sin, separating ourselves from the leg or the eye or whatever else. And even without those limbs, we become much stronger because things are right with God. And so that's what I would encourage us in this year of faith, and especially as we begin these 40 days for life. Let's go beyond what we think our limitations are. Let's go beyond the comfort zone and do some things that maybe we might never have thought of doing. The fact that we're going to have a billboard out on 83 South that says, St. Joan of Arc, life wants a chance, and has a picture of these children on there, might change thousands of minds every day. To think that our prayers given in humble supplication when the Blessed Sacrament will be up here for 40 hours straight might save not only our life, but many other lives as well. It's very much like Bishop McFadden said in his letter. To be an advocate for life, to truly be pro-life, that advocacy begins far before conception. and endures along the life of that child after they're born. We need only act. To act in the name of Christ, which holds more power with us than we could ever do without.